Good evening. Um, as I shared with you during the week, I've been going through the book of John, and but on Wednesdays and Sundays, I want to go through the Psalms. And I like to do that until I finish all the Psalms, which may take me a year or so, but that's okay. Um, when early on when I got saved, uh, we used to go to church on Wednesday evenings, and what would happen was that we the pastor would generally bring a devotional message, more devotional than preaching. And then all the men would go in one room and we'd pray, and all the women in another room and pray. Then, after we were all done with that, we'd come out and have a time of fellowship. And I always look forward to that because not everybody would go to that, but those that were really interested in spiritual things. And so I really look forward to those times. And also, so it was not only on Sundays, but we also did it on Wednesdays as well. So I really look forward to that, and I like to do that. Maybe it'd be of help to those of you, some of you that are at home that need some encouragement, especially Psalms is loaded with encouragement. And in Psalm 6, what we have here is David's plea to God for mercy. Now, generally, you're asking for that when something probably you've done wrong, because mercy, what mercy means is to withhold from you what you deserve. Okay? Grace is giving you what you don't deserve, and mercy is withholding from you what you do deserve. So I suspect that David had done something, and we've all done it. There's some times when I've messed up, and I said, and I'm coming to God, God, please, have mercy on me. And listen to what David says here. He says, "Oh Lord, do not rebuke me in thine anger." And David knows that, God has emotions just like we do. And it was probably not very happy with what he did. And so David is pleading with him, and I want you to notice what we're going to get to, what appeal he actually made to God to get God to not rebuke him in his anger. And he says, "Nor chasten me in thy wrath." And that's the idea of disciplining him. I mean, by now David's realizing, he made him, he did wrong. And there's times when I realize I've done wrong, and I know, okay, here it comes. I remember growing up when my mom would say, "Wait till your dad gets home." I would not look for that. I knew I was going to get disciplined. Okay, my mom wasn't like my dad. My dad didn't say too much, you know, but when he did, and when that belt came out, man, it did a number on me. And and he would discipline me, and for my good, because I had done wrong. And when my mom she would hit me with a broom or a sandal or whatever, I'd just laugh. But when my dad came, that's a whole different story. And so David's kind of feeling like this. He says, don't nor chasten me in thy wrath. And he says, "Then be gracious to me, O Lord, for I am pinning away." I mean, he's feeling really bad, And there's been times when I've been so overly convicted of sin that I just want to go dig a hole somewhere and climb in it. And and that's probably how David was feeling at this point. He says, "Hear me, O Lord, for my bones are dismayed." In other words, he's shaken. That's kind of the idea. He's just so kind of, full of remorse and shaken for whatever it was. And he is really intense. And he says, "And my soul is greatly dismayed." Not only his bones, but his whole personality. And he says, "But thou, O Lord, how long?" I'm going to stay in this condition. I don't want to be like this all my life, you know. Then he says, "Return, O Lord, rescue my soul. Save me." Now here's this, watch what he does. This is really great. "Save me, Lord, because of your loving kindness. Not because of anything what I do, but because you're a kind and loving God." I mean, tell my dad, "Dad, you're the best guy ever." And uh, and he says, and then he says this, and I think this is the greatest appeal. He says, for there is no mention of thee in death. And so who's going to give thanks? He said, David makes himself, you kill me, Lord. Who's gonna give you thanks? And why would David say that? I thought about that for a long time, and I think, if there's one thing that God likes is somebody that's thankful. We always see that person that's humble, that has been given something, that's really grateful, and God likes that too. So David, right away, he makes this brilliant appeal to God because of your loving kindness, Lord. Because of if you discipline me to the point of death, who's going to praise you anymore? We're not going to be able to do that, once we're dead. And and then he goes on. He says, "Who's going to give thanks to you?" So we want to give thanks. And I thought about that as I was reading this morning, and I said, that's why I need to be thankful today. You know, uh, a lot of things have not been going my way lately. And it seems like every little thing is keeping me, even tonight, from getting to this. My microphone wouldn't work. My camera wasn't working. The computer wouldn't come on. I meant to do this over an hour ago, but I finally got it to work. And even now, a sign is coming up that's saying too low FPS. And probably what I think it is that in the evening, more people are using the internet. And that's my guess anyway. And so he goes on in verse 6, and he says, I'm weary with sighing. Every night I make my bed swim. I dissolve my couch with my tears. My eyes have wasted away with grief. It has become old because of all my adversaries. And when I read that, I said, where if I remember that again? And I have this little Bible that I've had, I don't know, 50 years. And right here in the green, I don't know if you can see it, I circled that when I was in that condition many years ago in Southern California. I circled that. I'm weary with my mourning. I'll never forget that time. I was all alone. I had taken everything out of my house. All I had was a couch, and I put up scripture verses all over the wall on cardboard. Because that's how bad off I was. I was in a really bad shape, really bad condition. And I remember I was reading that, I had read through all the Psalms, and I remember reading that, and I circled that in green. I said, yeah, God, that's my heart. It doesn't take long. I'll be honest with you. When you're pouring your heart out to God, and you're willing to do whatever he wants you to do, and you're willing to take responsibility for whatever it is you did, and you're willing to be accountable, it doesn't take long for God to restore your joy and give you confidence again that you're in fellowship with him. But you got to take those steps just the same way David is doing. And then David says, depart from me, all you who do iniquity. He's talking about the people that have caused him problems and grief and all that. For the Lord has heard the voice of my weeping. It's hard for me to get to that point. God, okay, I'm praying. Okay, I know you heard it. That's what makes David so great, is that he's always able to start with a problem and finish with praise. And that's what he's doing here. He says, for the Lord has heard the voice of my weeping. The Lord has heard my supplication. The Lord receives my prayers. All my enemies shall be ashamed and greatly dismayed. They shall turn back and shall suddenly be ashamed. I got to put on my glasses here a second. Okay, don't freak out now. I got to see it because in my Bible, this is the one I use a lot. It's falling apart. Well, the pages are falling out, and I've written all over it. And I used to write in pencil real small, but I can't see what I wrote it in unless I put my glasses on, you know. And and one thing I had put in there, a little note that I think may be helpful. When David said, "For the Lord has heard the voice of my weeping," and I remember many years ago I wrote the little question, "What language is that in? What language the voice of our weeping, you know? And so, and those little things like that I pick up on and I think about. Now, it's not a, I don't believe it's some kind of gibbery gosh or something like that. But if you think about the voice of your weeping, how many times have you cried out to God? There isn't a lot of coherence there sometimes. It may be just something like Peter said when Peter had got out of the boat. He saw Jesus. Jesus was walking on water, and Peter got out of the boat. So, well, Jesus could do that. I can do that. He starts walking down to Jesus. Then he's a fisherman. He's out on the lake. He knows what the lake and these storms can do. And all of a sudden, he starts looking at the water instead of Jesus. What happens? He starts to sink, and he's going to drown. And he says, Jesus, save me. Jesus got him by the hand and put him, Peter. I resonate a lot with Peter, okay? And so that's what he did. And he saved him. And that's kind of like the voice of our weeping or our crying. Lord, save me. Don't discipline me, Lord, in your, give me mercy. I know I've done wrong. I know I don't deserve anything. Be gracious to me. And some of y'all may be needing to hear that and feel that right now. And God is a very gracious God. Think about it. Say to God, God, if you discipline me too hard, I die. Who's going to give you thanks? So think about giving him thanks. Make that appeal to him. And God will grant you mercy. He'll give you what you don't deserve. God bless y'all. Y'all have a good night. I'll be back tomorrow with the Gospel of John. Bye-bye.